Shir hamalot b'shuv Adonai et shivat Zion hayinu kecholmim. When God restored the captives to Zion, we were like dreamers. This is how Psalm 126, the Psalm for Shabbat, begins. Indeed, the last 20 living hostages have been restored to Israel, and it feels like a surreal, miraculous dream. I did not think it would happen. Like so many of you, I was glued to my screen on Monday watching tearful, joyful, emotional family reunions, hearing primal screams from families seeing their loved ones again as if they had returned from the dead, because in a sense they had. It was amazing to see faces of hostages who have become familiar to us over the last 2 years, like Ziv and Gali Berman, twin brothers, separated for 2 years, who once reunited, donned their Maccabi Tel Aviv jerseys, and waved out the window of the van to the throngs welcoming them home. And Alon Ohel, whose family decided that they were going to mark Simchat Torah as another birthday, since this was the day their son was reborn. Or Avi Natan Or, with his girlfriend Noah Argamani, who, with his girlfriend Noah Argamani, were stolen from each other and the world as Hamas motored them into the tunnels, to finally be reunited with a tumbling hug and a sweet kiss. And it must have been a dream, like a dream for the captives as well. The returning hostages were the only Israelis who didn't experience October 8th. Guy Gilboa Dalal, who was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival, only learned upon his release that his brother Gal, who was also there with him, had survived the massacre. And Bar Cooperstein, whose father Tal was wheelchair-bound after a car accident led to a stroke, he saw his father rise from his wheelchair for the first time in 2 years at their emotional reunion on Monday. We know that not every reunion was joyful. 9 captives returned in body bags this week, and 19 more families still wait, desperately hoping their deceased loved ones will return home for proper burial. And more than 1,000 families this week marked the 2-year Hebrew yahrzeit for their loved ones killed on Simchat Torah, while hundreds more grieve soldiers and reservists killed while serving in this war. There has been too much pain and too much death in Israel and in Gaza over the last 2 years. We've gotten to this fragile ceasefire, the day we've all prayed for. What happens now? It's hard not to worry that the terms of this agreement will fall apart, that trust from each side is just too broken to move forward. How do we even begin? Well, I suggest we can take a lesson from our liturgical calendar and texts, because on Monday night, Simchat Torah, we finished the last verses of our Torah cycle, which ends with death, the death of Moses, and then immediately starts again with Bereshit, a new beginning. For 2 years, we have been swirling in tohu vavohu, which is the Torah's words for formlessness and void that precedes creation. We too are coming out of a dark void, but this week marks this opportunity for a new beginning. Now, when God began creation, God first had to separate the light from the darkness. We can finally begin the healing process because we have finally brought the remaining living hostages out of the darkness and into the light. God then sets out creating a world of beauty, growth, and life. And so too in Israel and in Gaza, we must begin rebuilding of the southern kibbutzim, of leveled cities in Gaza, of torn up fields. But in some ways, the building feels like the easier part. The hardest part of creation? Well, it's dealing with human beings. This was true for God when he created us as well. I want to share with you an amazing story about creation that comes from the Midrash. rabbinic commentary to the Torah. So as God prepared to create Adam, the Midrash says, his angels offered him a lot of conflicting opinions. The angel, Kindness, said to him, you must create Adam because he will perform so many acts of kindness in the world. But Truth argued that man should not be created because he is full of lies. Righteousness argued for Adam to be created because he said he will perform acts of tzedek and righteousness. But Peace argued he cannot be created. Man is full of discord and war. So what did God do? The Midrash says that God took Truth, who was the ringleader of the bunch, and he threw him to the ground. The other angels go apoplectic. How could God do this? They start debating God's actions among themselves, protesting, engaging with each other, horrified that he had thrown Truth to the ground. And while they were distracted, God went ahead and formed Adam. And then he turned to the angels and said, what are you guys all deliberating about? I already created him. Isn't this just the wildest, most amazing midrash? God refuses to get bogged down in the angels' bureaucracy. The angels, to their credit, they just wanted to make sure God fully understood that humans are capable of immense cruelty, violence, and even lies. And in addition, they're also capable of extraordinary generosity, selflessness, heroism, kindness, and love. We have certainly seen all of these human capacities in abundance over the last 2 years, because this is the reality of people. We are human. Now, the rabbis interpret this midrash as an expression of God's immense, merciful love overriding everything else. God knows the best and the worst of what humans are capable of, but like a dreamer, God imagines our greatest possibilities and potential. The Creator thought, making these human beings, it's still worth it. Sometimes you just have to throw truth to the ground and dream. I've heard a lot of pundits and politicians express a lot of pessimism about the day after this ceasefire agreement. And the truth is, there will be inevitably many, many bumps along the road. It's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to rebuild, to make peace, to start again. And the hardest part of all will be creating trust among peoples who do not yet trust. But we are dreamers, and we have already experienced miraculous things like what we saw this week. Who would have thought that the captives would all return to Zion? And soon, as the joy wears off, we can get bogged down in all the realities and get cynical and despair. But we cannot forget that we are a people of hope. Hatikva, the hope. And like God, we will call upon our better angels to make a new beginning for Israel out of this crisis, because we always have, and because we have no other option. Now, our psalm for Shabbat ends with, those who sow in tears will reap in joy. May it be so, and may we be like dreamers once again.